From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your winter weather briefing for Central North Carolina. I want to remind folks who may be new to these webinars that this is just for Central North Carolina. So I would invite you to visit the National Weather Service offices to our west and east if you're outside of Central North Carolina and for particular details. But we've got increasing confidence that a winter storm will affect Central North Carolina Friday into Saturday. These slides are the slides that we sent out earlier this morning. There's one small change I made. I added one map I'll show you here in a minute. But generally speaking, nothing really has changed since what we sent out this morning at 6 a.m. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the slides here real quick in 2 or 3 minutes, give you the bottom line up front, and then we'll pause, and if folks need to disconnect, they can do so. But for folks who are able to stick around, I'll provide a little bit more background material about why our forecast is doing what it's doing. So for those who only have a minute or two to join us, let's get right into the briefing here. So keep in mind that it's still early and these details are likely to change. But snow, some mixed precip, maybe a isolated power outage or two, some black ice, and travel hazards are the hazards that we are anticipating. In terms of the snow, all of Central North Carolina will see some light snow when it first moves in late on Friday. Probably, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but right around the afternoon commute is when I think we'll start to see the first snowflakes falling. So keep that in mind when you're planning your day for Friday. And then depending on where you're at in Central North Carolina, there's a pretty good chance it'll change to a wintry mix by late in the evening or overnight into Saturday morning. The best chance for all snow will be along and north of the I-85 corridor, and you can see the timing on the right, where this whole event's basically late Friday through Saturday. Most of the precip I'll add will be out of here by Saturday morning, but the impacts may linger. All right, what about ice? There's still a great deal of uncertainty, but right now there could be a coating of ice in spots, most likely south of I-85. And anytime there's ice accumulating, there could be scattered, isolated power outages, but that depends on where the heaviest ice accumulates. And there's really a lot of uncertainty at this time. But the further you head south from I-85, the better the chance for those power outages. And then, of course, you know, in the nights subsequent to the event, unfortunately, sometimes we see the road or the water or the melting snow and ice refreeze, and that presents a black ice problem. That'll be a hazard probably Saturday night, well, likely Saturday night, and potentially even Sunday night as well. And then finally, travel hazards. Most of Central North Carolina may experience travel hazards, but again, it's way too soon to say how bad, where the worst of it will be. And again, we urge everybody to stay tuned. All right, so this is what I added in terms of the addition, and I'll be emailing these slides out here within, shortly after we disconnect here. But I broke up Central North Carolina, and the reason I've got these counties highlighted is because that is the National Weather Service Raleigh coverage area. Again, if you're outside of these counties, definitely refer to your local National Weather Service office for details for your particular county. But I broke it up into 3 areas. The area A is generally along and north of I-85. Area B is south of 85 to roughly, Wadesboro to Southern Pines to Smithfield to Rocky Mount. And then areas south of that line I just mentioned, area C. Now, area A is the part of Central North Carolina that we think has the best chance to see precip remain all snow throughout the entire duration. But the snow could change to sleet or freezing rain for a couple hours before it ends Saturday morning. Several inches of snow are possible there, okay? And that's not unusual. This is very typical for a Carolinas winter storm. What I'm showing you here is nothing really new or totally unusual. This is actually oftentimes how it plays out. Area C, I'll jump to area C. We'll get to area B in a minute, but area C is the part of Central North Carolina that will see a brief period of snow at the onset, maybe a light coating, a dusting of snow, but that area has the best chance to see more maybe sleet and freezing rain mixing, but perhaps even just changing the rain. If I'm in maybe Laurinburg and Clinton, those are the places I think have the best chance to change to rain, which would help wash away any light coating of snow that fell Friday evening. But as you get closer to the western and northern areas of Area C, that's where it's more likely to see some freezing rain and some ice accumulation, okay? So Area C will be the warmest and will probably have the least amount of frozen whatever falls, okay? It's that Area B, the part in between, that is always the challenge in nailing down how much of what. And what I mean by what is what precip type. So that part, Area B, part of central North Carolina, will see snow at the onset, just like the rest of the areas. There could be a light coating, maybe a ½ inch of snow, maybe an inch of snow that accumulates Friday evening. But then as warm air aloft moves in, there's a pretty good chance that the precip could change to sleet, maybe even some freezing rain after midnight, and maybe freezing rain for a couple hours before it ends Saturday morning. So there could be some ice accumulation in Area B. Again, particularly the southern half of that zone, close to the border of Area C, could see some interesting ice accumulations. Not a lot, but definitely, you know, again, ice that, you know, could weigh down some trees, maybe some power outages. I will point out again, this is very usual, very typical for a central North Carolina weather event. Obviously, things could change. These little areas and zones will probably need adjusted. But I will say, if there's one good thing, is that the amount of precipitation overall, regardless of what type of precipitation it is, the overall amounts of precipitation should be fairly light. Okay, we're not expecting, you know, a big event. Okay, it's a quick hitting storm, and if you hang around after the pause or the intermission, so to speak, I'll show you why. But this is going to be a quick hitting storm, so I don't think it's going to be a lot of anything. All right. So when's it gonna things turn bad? It's basically during the daytime, late afternoon, Fridays, when we start to see that snow starting to fall. There could be some, you know, it's amazing how just the coating of snow could really make bridges really slick. We saw that a couple days ago with that quick hitting event. So, you know, if I tell you a coating, don't be like, that's not a big deal. It could be a big deal if, you know, a lot of cars travel over it. So that's why I colored hazardous travel for the daytime Friday, because when that first initial batch of snow comes down, things could get slick really fast, even with a light coating of snow. So keep that in mind. But the worst of the weather will certainly be the nighttime hours Friday night. And the reason I have day highlighted on Saturday is that's mostly after midnight. But most of the precip will be over by 10 a.m. Saturday morning. Okay. And then at that point, power outages are possible just depending on where the heaviest ice accumulated. We have black ice concerns Saturday night and Sunday night, maybe. And then, you know, again, depending on where you're at, you know, hazardous travel could linger right through the daytime Saturday and Saturday night. Okay, so this timeline could help you, you know, get a sense for when. Okay. Again, keep in mind it's still early in the forecast process. These details are likely to change. Okay. It's way too early for amounts. You know, it's just way too early for that. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter amounts, right? Even just a light coating could still cause problems. So let's not focus on amounts, and let's focus on what we're going to do to be ready even for some minor accumulations, which can produce hazardous travel. Okay. I shared this. I'm not going to cover this very much because you can do this on your own when you look at the slides. But why all the uncertainty? Because it depends on the details of the low track. Okay, so that's basically our briefing in the bottom line, quickly summarized here in 4 or 5 minutes. Again, when I email these out, this is a slide that's new, and you'll want to refer to that in terms of where you're at and who's going to see the worst and what are the possibilities. Okay. So anyway, I know some folks may have to drop off. I wanted to get this, at least the gist of it out there right away. Let me pause for a moment to see if there's any questions. Chris asked, so Area B, let me go back to the map here. Area B. So Area B will likely not end with only rain. It will likely end with freezing rain. That's the question. Well, that depends. If you're in the southern portion of Area B, it could end as rain. But area B has the potential to see freezing rain the longest duration. Okay. Yeah, Jared, it's just too soon to say snow amounts. Exact. I mean, again, for folks who can hang around, I will give you a little bit more detail. So I'm going to pause. That's the gist of my briefing. Okay, I'll email these out here in just shortly. So I'm going to pause for a moment. And if folks have the time to stick around, if you want, you're welcome to stick around as long as you want or drop off whenever. I'll go into a little, as I like to call it, the bonus material, the extra stuff to share a little bit more in depth. All right, and then I'll get to the questions here in just a bit. So bear with me here while I switch screens. Okay, so what is going on? What's driving this this weather system? And what I'm showing you here is an upper level pattern, and this is current. Actually, it's about right now. And this is the weather system here, this big circle, okay? Anytime you see circles on a map like this, that usually means trouble, right? That circle is the low pressure system that's resulting in all the winds that we're hearing about in the news in Southern California with all those fires, right? So as we step forward in time, that's currently right now, and this is basically Thursday morning. That weather system that I pointed out in the southwest is going to move east, but then it changes from a closed circle to what we call an open wave. And when they become an open wave instead of a circle, they usually pick up speed and start moving really quick. And then here's Saturday morning, and then by Saturday evening, it's gone. So let me just back up real quick. This is Friday midday, and then it just blasts its way across here real fast. It doesn't stick around. Okay, so that's why I don't think precip amounts will be particularly high, because this is a fast moving system. Okay, fast moving. So there it is. Look how fast it's moving across. Okay, so anyway, let me show you the low pressure and the moisture that's coming. I'm not going to show you precip type. I just want to show you where the moisture is moving. This is midday Friday, and here over basically the Florida Panhandle is where the low pressure surface low is. And remember, we always talk about the location of the low. And basically, this is by Friday evening, and you can see the green. The green is just generic precip. It's already moving into central North Carolina by Friday evening. So that's why I think, the evening commute, we could see flakes flying already by the evening commute. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're planning your day Friday. And then look how the low just kind of scoots up along the southeast coast, spreading precip. This is midnight, Friday night to Saturday morning, probably when the heaviest precip will occur. And then the center of the low passes over Cape Hatteras by daybreak Saturday, and then it's gone by midday. So quick hitting, very quick hitting weather event. As I look at total moisture, and this is from the GFS model, by the way. So total overall accumulated precip, and I'll stop this at midday Saturday, and you can see there's a relative minimum over us compared to areas to our east and west, and that's reflected also in the European model. Look at, there's a minimum over us, and that's also reflected in the Canadian model, which let me back up to a previous run. And you can see there's a localized minimum over us. And the reason is there's so much dry air in place. And so we're just not going to see it's going to be quick hitting, and we're just simply not going to see the big moisture numbers that places to our west will see. Okay, so what about amounts? Well, of course, that's dependent on temperature. So I first look at what's the temperature at the cloud layer, okay, at the bottom of the cloud. And what we want to focus on is this red line. That's the freezing temperature, right? And as long as we are in the blue, it's snow. But once we get on the other side of this red line, it warms up above freezing at the cloud layer. So this is Friday evening, and that's why all of central North Carolina will be cold enough for snow at the onset. But look what happens. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Stand by. Southeast. Let's go to the southeast. Look how the warm air starts to really surge northward. And again, this is at the cloud layer. It's really starting to push north. So what that means is at the bottom of the cloud, then those hydrometeors, that precip, is melting. So that melting line is basically potentially going all the way back to I-85. The European model, on the other hand, is further south with it. So so the European model is a little colder, and the Canadian model is somewhere in between. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to point that out, that if the GFS model is the correct one, then there's potential for more in the way of sleet and freezing rain just on the other side of this red line. Okay. Now, finally, I'll take you to temperatures, because surface temperatures rather, because surface temperature is obviously very important for determining who will have freezing rain and who will have, maybe just rain. Okay, so here again, here's Friday evening. It's cold enough everywhere. This is midnight. So this particular model has temperatures rising above freezing, basically south and east of Smithfield, Johnston County, south and east of Johnston County, rising above freezing. How about the European model? Does it agree? Pretty much. Yeah, it's close. The Canadian model, it's kind of, this is the time frame. Where's 6C? Oh, it's missing 6C. So we're not comparing apples to apples here. So stand by. Yeah, oh, there it is right there. So it's a little bit further south. So the bottom line here is, depending on which model is right, will determine, how far that warm nose, and again, the GFS warm nose, the warm air coming in aloft, is always what we're concerned with. This right here, this is warming at the bottom of the cloud layer, which basically portends mixed precip such as sleet and freezing rain. So anyway, so that's the challenge. But I'll tell you, this is very, very typical. This is usually what happens. All right, so I'm going to dabble real quickly into precipitation types and amounts and whatnot. So let me put on here, bear with me here for 1 second here. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay, there we go. So what I'm showing here, bear with me here for just a second while I put some county lines on here, is basically, if you took all the models that I just talked about, the European, the GFS Canadian, and you put it in a big mixing pot and stirred it up and mixed it together, this is kind of a snowfall forecast, if you will. So let me back up and let me say that this is 1 p.m. Friday. This is 7 p.m. Friday. And as I mouse over, you could see this is the 0 to 1 inch contour. So that's that coating of snow that I said would be possible by early evening Friday. And then as we continue to move through, this is 1 a.m. Saturday. And why aren't the mounts increasing here in the eastern I-95? Because it's changing. It's mixing with and changing to sleet and freezing rain, while north of 85, the snow is still falling. And then by Saturday morning, the precip is starting to move away. And then by midday, it's over. So this is the average, if you will, of that big pot of models that have been mixed together. So this, as you go east of a 95, we're talking average 1 inch of snow. And again, most of that falls at the onset. And then this area from 1 to 2 inches in that corridor is basically the snow that continues to fall before it changes to sleet and freezing rain. And then along and north of 85 is where the chance is the best for it to stay all snow. But even there, we're talking maybe 2 to 3 inches in this contour. Okay, 2 to 3 inches, which, again, is not like, it's not even close to one of the highest storms ever. You know what I mean? This is just, it may not even reach warning criteria. Our winter storm warning criteria is 3 inches of snow. So anyway, this is the average. Okay. Okay. What if you ask me, well, what's the worst case scenario? Well, I can slide this statistic up, and this is basically that big mix of models, but 9 out of 10 of the models showed less than this amount. So the idea here is, this is worst case scenario. In the worst case scenario, we're talking maybe a couple inches of snow along the I-95 corridor, and maybe as much as 3 to 5 in the triad along and north of 85, but that is the worst case possibility. The best case scenario is that the warm air moves in, it stays real dry, and we're talking just a light coating of snow, basically from Raleigh west and north, okay? But keep in mind, 9 out of 10 models show more than this happening, okay? All right. So what about freezing rain? All right, well, I know I said I wasn't gonna I wasn't gonna dabble in that, but I think I'll go ahead and do it anyway. It's a little dangerous, but trying to give everybody a sense for where we think the best chance for freezing rain may be. Here is Friday at 7 p.m. Nothing yet because, like I said, it's snowing at the onset everywhere. And then by 1 a.m., there's a little bit of accumulation of freezing rain here in the southern portion of central North Carolina. And then by morning, Saturday morning, here's the where the mean, the average of all the models think that most of the ice accumulation will occur, okay? So basically we're talking the northern I-95 corridor down through Johnston, Wake County, down through Lee and Harnett counties, down toward Anson, Stanley counties. Again, the typical spots that tend to have the best chance to see ice. Why nothing south and east of Fayetteville? Because it's probably changed to rain. East of Goldsboro, probably changed to rain. Why nothing from Greensboro north and west? Because it's probably all snow there, okay? So, and what about these amounts? Less than 1/4 of an inch, okay? So that's good news because it typically takes 1/4 of an inch or so to start to result in power outages and damage to trees. So right now, the average of all those models I talked about, if you take all those models, mix them together, and get an average, we're talking less than 1/4 of an inch of ice. So could be a lot worse. Okay, you're probably wondering, well, what if the worst of the worst of the worst case scenario happens? What does that look like? This is the worst of the worst case scenario, okay? And we're starting to talk about amounts 1/4 to 1/2 inch, okay? But in the red. But keep in mind that 9 out of 10 models, so 90% of the models show less than this happening, okay? So let's go and use the 50% of the mean. Okay, so the 50% of the mean basically is showing that the northern I-95 corridor down towards the Highway 24 corridor, down towards the 74 corridor is where perhaps the most ice would occur. And again, that is, even there, it's less than 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's what the models are cooking right now. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to show. So to put this back, to come full circle, that is all summarized. Everything I just showed you is summarized in this graphic right here. So so anyway, that is our the way it stands right now. Definitely an impactful event, but not the worst we've ever seen. Thankfully, it's a quick moving system. It just simply doesn't have enough time to drop a lot of whatever it's going to drop, and it's too dry ahead of time. So a lot of that initial batch is going to dry up. So so anyway, as long as it's a fast mover, we should be able to handle this with a day or two of inconvenience. Okay. So today's Wednesday. We'll be doing another one of these tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll do one tomorrow afternoon. And then we'll go hourly updates on Friday. There'll be more frequent email updates and PowerPoint briefings as we head through this event. But anyway, so that's what we have here on this Wednesday, January 8th, your 11:30 briefing for Central North Carolina.